I'm Ashley.
And I'm Brady.
And we are the Cinema Twins,
broadcasting live from Georgia College on WGUR 95.3 The Noise. Welcome to the Cinema Twins. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have some news that we would like everyone that is listening, tell your friends, tell everybody. We have some awesome social media pages out there. We have our Facebook page, which is the Cinema Twins on WGUR 95.3. And we have an Instagram that is at the Cinema Twins. And we also have, most importantly, our YouTube channel where we will post every show that we broadcast, minus the music, and that will be on our YouTube channel every Friday afternoon / Saturday morning, depending on how quickly we can edit and get to that. So everyone, please enjoy that. And if you miss the show one week, feel free to go on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff.
Tell your friends to subscribe. Get your family to subscribe. Whatever you want to do, though. You know, just give us some help.
Yes, we're having so much fun doing this show. We love it, and thanks to everyone who's been listening. Today, we're going to start out the show a little differently. Instead of doing our Now Playing segment, we actually didn't get a chance to go see anything this week, so we're going to start out with our very first Director Spotlight, and our Director Spotlight this week is going to be the legendary Martin Scorsese, one of our favorite filmmakers.
That's right. And I think that, Brady, we should just go ahead and start off with the movie we watched last night, which you had never seen before, which was Taxi Driver. So, Brady, can you give us, your thoughts on Taxi Driver since you watched it, for the first time last night?
Okay. Taxi Driver really shocked me, first of all. I wasn't sure what I was really getting into. I obviously knew what it was. I didn't know what it was about, though, but I was looking forward to it because I've never seen anything that Martin Scorsese did that I didn't like. And, I mean, watching Taxi Driver was no different. You know, Martin Scorsese knows what he's doing making a movie. He never fails to make a movie that's going to impress mostly everyone, the smart people. No, not really. Opinions are all valid, but
some of them are just, more valid than others.
Sure. But Martin Scorsese really knows how to make a movie, especially with Robert De Niro. They pair up all the time, and I'm not going to complain about it. It's amazing. Seeing a young Robert De Niro in this role was absolutely incredible. He's so strange and socially awkward, but you like him because of how he plays the character, which reminds me,
oh gosh,
of it's going to be mentioned absolutely every episode. You have to know. It reminded me of Jake Gyllenhaal.
Every show.
It's a staple of the Cinema Twins by this point. Jake Gyllenhaal's role in Nightcrawler is very reminiscent of Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver because of their social awkwardness, and they're both kind of creepy and you wouldn't necessarily want to run into them on the street, and they both play the characters so well. So in that way, and many more that I'm sure we'll discuss, Nightcrawler was the 2014 Taxi Driver.
We're not the first to say it, and we definitely won't be the last, because the similarities are very striking. And I think the difference is, I think Bickle, Robert De Niro's Travis Bickle, is a little bit more likable just because he kind of has a little bit of an innocence about him that isn't present in Jake Gyllenhaal's Lou Bloom.
Yes, Lou Bloom is very much, I'm smart, I know what I'm doing, everything is calculated, while Travis Bickle has a childlike innocence almost, and his handwriting is where it really hits me, is when you see things that he wrote down, you're like, that's a child's handwriting. He hasn't been educated, he doesn't know, so he does have an innocence, which I think makes you sympathize with him more throughout the movie.
Yeah, and I really think that in Taxi Driver, you're put, I guess, a little bit, you're put inside of Travis Bickle's head just like you are put kind of in Lou's space in Nightcrawler, but in Taxi Driver, he's less aware of his, strangeness, of his normality.
He doesn't do like he doesn't know or realize that some of the actions that he takes or some of the things that he does isn't normal behavior for people. He doesn't understand that. So it makes you feel bad for him when he does something that's out of the ordinary, like take a girl on a first date to a dirty movie, which is not something normal, not something you would want to do on a first date or any date at all. And you just cringe because you're like, no, like you feel for this guy because he just saw this woman and was like, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and really wanted to impress her. And it was just, it's sad to watch. And then things go downhill for his character, and he's just very striking to watch the transformation and where he goes through there. And he doesn't even realize it, really. He's just like, man, these thoughts going through my head, and it's sad to see this man who really just wants to, I don't know if he feels like the need to be normal, but he just feels very much like he wants to fit in, I guess, and have friends, and he just doesn't really socially know how to do that.
Brady, and I really think that what sums the movie up is the tagline that's on the poster. I really love it. It says, on every street in every city in this country, there's a nobody who dreams of being somebody. He's a lonely, forgotten man, desperate to prove that he's alive. And I just love that so much when we were looking at it last night, and it really shows, I think it really encapsulates the movie, because even though you do sympathize with him, he still is a creepy character, like really scary.
Yeah, and you know, it's really interesting that that is the tagline, because I saw the tagline on the poster and I asked you, I was like, oh, what quote is that from? Because I had just watched the movie and I knew it wasn't there. And we were a little stumped, and we looked it up, and we were like, oh, wow, that's just the tagline. The fact that they put that much into it rather than just a tagline that's going to entice, you know, short, to the point. I really like that they put more thought in it to have that beautiful string of words to sum up the movie perfectly.
Yeah, I really love it so much. And you know, the thing about Taxi Driver is the score really sets the mood for it at the same time. And it really just, you can, when you hear the score, you can see him driving around the city at night. Like, I think I'm really going to start listening to that when I go on night drives. Just, it's beautiful. It sets the mood, even though it does get a little bit repetitive, I feel. And, you know, that's another similarity for me with Nightcrawler, because I didn't love the score in Nightcrawler either.
Yeah, well, I thought the score set the mood really well. In Taxi Driver, it did get a little repetitive for me, but, you know, it did come out in the 70s, so it's going to be different and a little jarring to watch something that came out in the 70s when you're used to movies from these last few years and things like that having very different tones and very different types of scores. But Martin Scorsese, he knows how to tell a story through a camera. He really, the most striking shots in this movie to me were the ones from above, the aerial shots. You would be, you know, looking at someone head on, and then you would all of a sudden just see the scene from above them. And it really just caught my eye and really drew me into the whole scene and made me feel like I was witnessing these acts and these characters in a way that just really put me in the story. And it really made me want to keep watching. And I was extremely tired when we were watching this movie last night, but even with that, I normally can't focus on things when I'm that tired, but I was drawn into Taxi Driver because of the amazing character study that it is.
Scorsese does character studies really well. He has a few more that we're going to talk about. Like, Goodfellas is less of a character study and more of just the rise and fall of one man, Henry Hill, and just the stuff that he went through, and The Wolf of Wall Street with Jordan Belfort, with his character, and just, they're all kind of despicable people, but Scorsese just draws you in. He makes you care about them. He makes you want to see them kind of succeed, and then, but you're also kind of like, when they do fall, no, they got what they deserve, but Taxi Driver doesn't follow that same formula that Scorsese has with the rise and fall. And I thought, honestly, I said this to you last night, Brady. I felt that it was one of the best endings that is in a Scorsese movie. I love the ending of Taxi Driver, and we're not going to spoil it here, but it's just, I thought it was beautiful because I thought that I had been spoiled. Like, I thought I knew the ending, and so when I was watching it, I was surprised, like, I was wrong. I didn't know the ending at all.
Ashley, is Taxi Driver still on Netflix? I know it was.
It was, and then they took it off before I got a chance to watch it, and then they put it back on, and I watched it again. So I don't know if it is right now.
Well, if you're interested in watching Taxi Driver, go out, see if it's on Netflix. If not, I'm sure it's probably on, what's that site that you like so much?
Vudu. I don't know if it's on there, but you can check. I mean, it's clicks of a button. Just seek out Taxi Driver if you haven't seen it. It's especially if you're a Scorsese fan, because I love Scorsese and I waited way too long to see this movie.
I definitely did as well. I would really like to get into his character study on Jordan Belfort in The Wolf of Wall Street. Now, this was the second Scorsese movie I saw in theaters. I almost said it was the first, but I saw Shutter Island in theaters. I'm pretty sure. I think I did.
I did not know that.
The Wolf of Wall Street, I saw it on Christmas Day, the day it came out.
With our grandparents. All of our family.
Quite the experience, if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, which it's pretty popular, so I think most people have. But the way that Scorsese makes you see Jordan Belfort and you see the horrible, despicable things that he's done, you don't sympathize with him during the fall at all, but you still enjoy watching his rise as well.
It's a fun movie. It is 3 hours. I think it's around 3 hours and 12 minutes. I could be wrong. Look that up, Brady. But I never felt bored. I never felt like, oh my goodness, this is such a long movie. Like, when you're watching a Scorsese movie, you know it's going to be pretty long. But this one, I heard people complain about the runtime. It didn't bother me in the slightest. I loved it. I could have done 2 more hours of watching him because, number one, Leonardo DiCaprio's performance in that movie was just electric. Like, he made you like Jordan Belfort, but at the same time, like you said, you don't really sympathize with him when, everything goes wrong. But, like, everything about it and the colors are so bright that it draws you in as well.
Definitely. And that runtime is exactly 3 hours long.
Okay, exactly 3 hours.
It's 180 minutes. And the way that Scorsese makes the rise so much fun, even though, like, typically the rises of the people in these movies are something that is despicable and not something you really want to see, he still makes it fun, and then he also makes the fall fun and entertaining to watch, and you're just so drawn in and you really want to see where these characters end up and where these people end up. And I mean, obviously, Jordan Belfort is a real character. Henry Hill is a real guy. And both of those movies have the intense rise and fall. And Goodfellas which is the one with Henry Hill. For those of you who don't know, it's about Henry Hill, and as long as he can remember, he always wanted to be a gangster.
That movie, I remember when I first sat down and actually watched that movie, and the second it ended, I started it over, and I watched it again because the characters in that movie are so rich. I love everything about it. I will say it is my favorite Martin Scorsese movie. I know it's a really cliched pick, but you just don't get good. You don't get better than Goodfellas. I've thought about this a lot. I have not seen as many movies as I would have liked, but for me, I think it is the best movie that I have ever seen, including The Godfather. I haven't seen The Godfather Part 2 yet, but there's something magical about that movie. Just every scene is electric and you want to follow him, and the dialogue is funny at parts. It's just so great.
Yes, and something that we forgot to mention about Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, Wolf of Wall Street, there's nothing quite like Scorsese nor narration movies.
Oh, I know.
The movies with narration in them, particularly Goodfellas and The Wolf of Wall Street, just really makes it even more magical, you know, like you said, because you're just seeing it from this particular person's point of view.
And they take you on a journey.
Yes, they do take you on a journey. And like, especially Henry Hill, you see him from when he's a kid growing up and the gangster life and everything like that, and it's so entertaining. Robert De Niro is also in Goodfellas, and he absolutely kills it. He's amazing in Goodfellas. His character is one of the most interesting in Goodfellas, and he's one of the most fun to watch interact with Henry Hill.
I have to say, that's when I first fell in love with Robert De Niro. And ever since I saw Goodfellas, I have had the biggest crush on him. Any young De Niro movies, I'm like, oh, I gotta see it. I love Robert De Niro, and he's such a phenomenal actor, and just especially, oh my gosh, Goodfellas is just amazing. Sometimes I can't put it into words. I love it so much, and like, just you're so right with the narration, because like, it bothers me when people are like, narration is a lazy tool that filmmakers use.
Not with Scorsese.
Not with Scorsese, exactly. I love narration personally. When it's done right, I don't think it's lazy. I think it draws you in, it takes you on a journey, and it's really telling you a story. And that's what movies are. It's storytelling.
Yes, exactly. It is storytelling, and especially the way that, I mean, I agree that narration can be a lazy tool, but that's if the narration isn't interesting and it's all expositional. And it's all expositional. That just makes it boring. That's a boring narration. That's someone reading you a book. So with Scorsese, the dialogue is always keeping you on your toes and keeping you interested and like taking you on a journey with every single one of his characters. And it's absolutely incredible to watch. And I mean, people say, I mean, a lot of Scorsese's movies are pretty vulgar, and like particularly The Wolf of Wall Street, but he made Hugo, which was amazing, and that was his movie right before The Wolf of Wall Street. And it was so strange to me because when Hugo came out, people were like, what? This isn't a Scorsese movie.
We want Goodfellas. Where's the old Scorsese? We want him back.
Yeah, and they like complained and said some people called it a kids movie, which Hugo's a movie for absolutely everyone, especially film fans. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible movie, visually, story-wise, everything. But then the next movie he made was The Wolf of Wall Street, which is a complete 180.
And man, people got up in arms about that. They were like, this is disgusting. It's like, people pick one. What do you want? Goodfellas Scorsese or Hugo Scorsese? Because it didn't seem like you wanted that, and now y'all are mad about this too.
But to me, I mean, it's obviously all Scorsese. He can do anything. He's absolutely incredible. One movie that it took me a while to see, and when I finally did, I was absolutely blown away, and it's by far one of my favorite Scorsese movies. I can't quite put it above Goodfellas, but this is the one that he won Best Director for, The Departed, with Leonardo DiCaprio, which, Leonardo DiCaprio, come on. He's so incredible. He could have had an Oscar for that movie, could have had one for The Wolf of Wall Street. Haven't given him to him yet. The Departed. This is his year. It's going to happen.
You mean The Revenant.
Oh, The Revenant. Sorry.
You know what I call The Departed, Birdie? The Departed. The Departed.
I begged her not to do the accent. I begged her. But The Departed is such a crazy thrill ride. You are confused the first time you watch it because it's about rats. It's about these kind of spies. Like, there's a mole for the cops that's in with like the mob, and then there's a
played by Matt Damon,
and then there's a mole
for the cops inside of the mob, which is played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Did we say that right?
I don't think so.
Leonardo DiCaprio is with the cops. He's on their side. Matt Damon is on the mob side, but they're both infiltrating the other side.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's a little bit confusing, but once you get into that movie, it's so incredible to watch. And there are so many twists and turns in it, even though you you would assume that you know the biggest twist and turn from the beginning, but you don't. There are so many events that happen that just keep you on your toes, and you see everything unfold in front of you, and it's truly one of the most exciting movies I've ever seen.
Mhm.
And the last, I guess, 20 minutes
my goodness.
just blow your mind. You are on the edge of your seat.
And Brady,
Literally.
Scorsese doesn't coddle you in that movie either. He doesn't try to explain anything to you. You just got to catch up. And it's real quick. And, you know, a second viewing it's nice because then you really understand what's going on. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, because the jargon can kind of get a little confusing. That's the only... And actually, no, that was not my only problem with the movie. I love the movie. It's probably my second favorite Scorsese, actually. I think for me it goes Goodfellas, The Departed, Taxi Driver, then The Wolf of Wall Street, but The Wolf of Wall Street and Taxi Driver switch all the time.
I was about to say, for me, The Wolf of Wall Street would be in front of Taxi Driver, but that could be because I've seen The Wolf of Wall Street a few times, and I haven't really gotten to let Taxi Driver sink in yet. But I think I know where you were going with the other problem you had with The Departed, which was there's one character that just seems kind of unnecessary.
Vera Farmiga's character.
But Ashley, I disagree partly because I do understand why she's there.
I get
and
it.
She ties the storyline together for me, but if she wasn't there, it wouldn't have mattered at all.
I get it, but I feel like her character could have easily, or her big role of the character could have easily been played by Mark Wahlberg. Like, they could have written in his character to be that role of, I can't really say it because, like, towards the end when stuff unravels, you know, like, you find stuff out. I just feel like Mark Wahlberg's character could have substituted for a little bit of the part that she had, and I just didn't feel that her character was that interesting.
Yeah, I agree, and I understand that, and
Whereas I
agree.
wanted to see more of Mark Wahlberg's character.
That's exactly what I was about to say. It's like Mark Wahlberg is hilarious and so fun to watch in this movie that you wish he was in it more, and I agree that they could have written it in a way that would have put him in the position to have carried out some of the actions that Vera Farmiga's character does in the movie. Mark Wahlberg's absolutely hilarious in the movie, and he's interesting. I agree, he's more interesting than Vera Farmiga's character. And a movie that I feel like people overlook a lot with Scorsese, and I think they overlook it because of how it was marketed, was Shutter Island. Shutter Island was marketed as a horror film when it should have been marketed as a psychological thriller, which is what it is.
I thought that Shutter Island was brilliant. I remember seeing the marketing for it. I was like, I didn't even know it was Scorsese. I mean, well, this was actually back before I actually really knew, like, who Scorsese was. But it was before, I don't know, the marketing was just, it was really bad. It marketed as a run-of-the-mill horror film, which it's not even that, like, there's suspense in the movie for sure, but it's really a puzzle piece is what it is. And you're putting together the puzzle pieces, and I think it has a great ending, too. And I don't know, I think people overlook it a lot, and I wish that movie would have gotten more love. I really do, because I don't know. I feel like it's a special movie. It's a special movie because of Leonardo DiCaprio's performance, and there's a great supporting cast in there as well that I honestly, I hate myself for not remembering the names. I know that Ben Kingsley plays oh my gosh, who does he play in the movie? Yeah, he plays the doctor, and you really can't say much about Shutter Island because you're going to give stuff away. It's really a great movie. And if you haven't seen Shutter Island because you're like, oh, horror movies, it's going to be bad. It's not bad. It's Scorsese, so it's amazing. Just watch Shutter Island if you skipped it.
It's great. And you know what's funny is that I take it back. I did not see it in theaters. I actually think we rented it from Blockbuster, which is funny because Ashley and I always joke that we single-handedly kept our Blockbuster in business that was in our town, because I really feel like it was one of the last ones to close. And as soon as our household got Netflix, it shut down. And it was really funny. We always have that running joke in our house. But Mark Ruffalo does great in Shutter Island as Leonardo DiCaprio's counterpart in
Mark
the movie.
Ruffalo.
And
Okay.
I've heard a lot of people say, like, oh, well, whatever, the twist wasn't good, I saw it coming. No, you didn't. You didn't see all of it coming.
You're a
'Cause
liar if you say that you saw everything coming. You are a liar. I'm sorry.
There are so many twists and turns in that one as well. But Scorsese's by far my favorite filmmaker out there right now. He's incredible. Can't wait for his next one. I know him and DiCaprio are teaming up again for
The Devil in the White City.
The Devil in the White City, which is going to be interesting, but that will come out after
Silence.
Silence. I assume it would come out after Silence, because we've actually been hearing about Silence for a while. But
It was supposed to come out this month. And then
yeah.
it got pushed up for a reason that I don't know.
It's
but-
been pushed back, and I haven't heard a lot about it recently, but that one will no doubt be fantastic when it finally comes on. This week for Should You Stream It, Ashley wanted to bring to your attention another movie that is on Vudu, so you're going to have to pay for it, $3.
$3. That is all it takes. And you get to watch Alfred Hitchcock's classic, Rear Window. And it is so worth it. Every time I sit down to watch a Hitchcock movie, I'm like, this has got to be overrated. There's no way that everyone is like correct when they say, oh my gosh, this is going to be one of the best movies you've ever seen. And every time I hit myself in the face, because every time he impresses me. I loved Rear Window because it did this fantastic thing where you're in one apartment watching one person all movie. Like, you don't see anything else. You're just in his apartment looking out his window, basically. The camera does move around inside the apartment with I forget the main character's name, Jeff, I believe. Yeah, and it's a great dynamic where you just get to see little character pieces from everybody, all of his neighbors, as he has broken legs and he's like staring out his window. Because, sorry, here's what happens in Rear Window. He plays a photographer, or the main character is a photographer, and like he gets hit by a car, I think, and his leg is broken, so he has to stay in his apartment. And so he starts kind of watching his neighbors because he's bored. And then one day, dun dun dun, he thinks that he sees his neighbor commit a murder. And I will say the movie takes a second to get started. Like, about 40 minutes, honestly, but it's still really interesting because you really do kind of get to know his neighbors, like all of his neighbors, not just the one that he thinks has killed his wife. It's really interesting because he has little nicknames for all of them, like Miss Lonely Hearts, Miss Torso. It's really interesting and just a fun movie. Like, Hitchcock just he is truly the master of suspense, and that's no different in this movie. It is beautiful. It's a really great, you could almost say there's a little bit of a love story in there too. It's really great. And if you haven't seen it, please go back, go to Vudu, $3, that's all it takes, and watch Rear Window because it is so good.
Well, I'm one of those people who needs to go on Vudu and watch it because I actually haven't seen it. Hearing you talk about it does really make me want to see it, though. I'll admit to the fault in my character that I have not seen a Hitchcock movie as of today.
Gosh, Brady.
I know. You'll probably force me to watch at least 4 today after this.
We're going to go watch Psycho because you've got to see Psycho.
I know, that's what I've heard multiple times. And like, I'm like you, honestly, I'm skeptical because I feel like it could be easily overrated for me. Because, Ashley, all right, let's admit, every now and then you get a little excited after you see a movie and you overrate it a bit. Not on this show. You've done a good job of pulling it back. But when you first call me, your first instinct when you watch a movie,
this is the best movie I've ever seen.
Exactly. That's how it is. And honestly, the only thing that I've seen that I was like, wow, Ashley didn't overrate that was Game of Thrones. When I started watching Game of Thrones, the way I knew that I actually needed to watch it and that it was actually really good rather than just by your recommendation was our mom actually just came into my room and like sat down and got this very serious look on her face, and she was like, Brady, Game of Thrones is really good. And that coming from my mom, I was like, wow, okay, I really need to sit down and watch this. But so Game of Thrones was something you didn't overrate. So I'm a little cautious to watch Psycho and Hitchcock's movies, but I think I will appreciate them as you do and as you have as you've watched them. So I think it'll be really interesting to watch those. Is there anything else about Rear Window that really just grabbed you?
Well, honestly, it's the characters. Like, they're kind of funny, and I think what I liked about them most is they feel like real people. They don't feel like they're in a movie. And I feel like I just liked, you see little different stories, not just the main story that you're following. You get to see little kind of like side stories in the movie, like little, oh my gosh, I'm losing the word. Like, subplots. There we go. Subplots. Like, there are little subplots in the movie with the neighbors, and they really all play out. And it's a good movie. It made me feel good. I liked it. There's a part where you're like literally on the edge of your seat about to die. Like, oh my goodness.
And you sang about the characters that don't seem like they're in a movie. One of my favorite things and one of the best compliments I like to give movies is that I forget that I'm watching a movie. And the first movie that I felt that to the point that I noticed it, that I was like, whoa, when I left the theater, like that was a movie, with Silver Linings Playbook. That movie just draws me in so much. And I'm sure on our in the next few director spotlights that we do, David O. Russell will definitely be one of them. He directed Silver Linings Playbook, The Fighter, American Hustle, which I liked less, but things like that.
We need to see American Hustle again. I think we need to give it another chance.
We'll see. But I definitely think we'll be talking about David O. Russell because he definitely knows how to make a movie as well. But in Rear Window, the way that you're talking about it, it does sound like something that I would really enjoy. So I guess I'll let you make me sit down and watch it.
Well, and the reason that it feels like that is because you really do feel like you're just hanging out in this guy's apartment, just chilling with him, looking out the window. Like, that's really what it feels like. And also, I'd love to live in an apartment like that, where they have like a little courtyard. You'll see what I mean when you watch the movie, because you should. Voodoo, $3. But yeah, I guess we can move on to your movie, which is on Netflix. Yes. I'm sure people hate me every week, like, go pay $3. But this one is on Netflix, and you wanted to talk about Snowpiercer.
Okay, so I'll start out with the plot, because I feel like we always get so into talking about the movie, and then we forget to say what it's about. Snowpiercer, I've seen it 4 times. It's about Chris Evans stars in the movie. Chris Evans is Captain America, but he stars in this movie, and it's kind of a world where in the events before the movie started, the whole world kind of froze over because of a backlash thing that happened when they were trying to control like global warming. So the whole world like kind of freezes. Well, this one guy, Wilford, foresaw this happening and created a train that you could live on forever, basically. The train will run forever, and each time it makes like its lap, it's been a year. And so when the movie starts, they've been on this train for 15 years.
I think it's 17.
17 years, somewhere around there. So there are like children on the train that don't know anything except for the train. And they call them train babies.
Mm-hmm.
And
in the whole wide train,
Yeah,
The
it's
whole wide train.
really an incredible movie because what you see is Chris Evans is in the back of the train. And so at the back of the train, it's the poverty ridden, like poor, outcasted members of society. And they decide to start a revolt and a rebellion, and they want to push to the front of the train and take over and change things for the better so that everyone has what they need. They're eating these protein blocks that are disgusting. They don't do much for them. And they have a man helping them along the way who's an older guy who's very wise and is guiding them. And it's just really incredible to see Chris Evans in this kind of a film. It's so blatantly not American. It's in English, but Bong Joon-ho is the director, and his style is incredible in this movie, and it's so visually breathtaking to watch even though you're in the train the entire time.
He really, really blends action and story together just seamlessly. He's a great director, and I really like to see some more of his movies.
It's beautiful. And in the movie, throughout the entire thing, Chris Evans is having to make decisions. And every decision he makes is either going backwards or moving forwards, going left or right on the screen. There are these beautiful shots. And there's a great YouTube video that goes into more detail and is smarter than I am that people should watch. It's called Every Frame a Painting. It's on YouTube, and he does a great episode on Snowpiercer and the movements of Snowpiercer, the left and the right, to make these decisions, like going backwards or going forwards, and the consequences of those decisions. And it's a spoiler heavy video, so watch the movie first. But it's a really incredible movie to watch. It made me fall in love with Chris Evans. I'm not a huge Marvel superhero type movie person yet. I just haven't gotten around to watching many of them, but
I have, and I'm not. I mean, it's okay. I hear Winter Soldier's really good, and I'd like to check that one out, but
I just love Chris Evans in Snowpiercer. It's great. I think that I know a lot of people, like whenever I mention this movie to people, they're like, oh yeah, I've seen it on Netflix. Don't skip over it. You should definitely watch it. There's an incredibly emotional monologue by Chris Evans towards the end, and it is so heart-wrenching, and you really feel for all these characters, and you care about their journey to the front, and it's such an incredible commentary on society.
I thought it was too. I thought he did a fantastic job in that movie. He made me cry there with his monologue. I thought that you're right when you say it's about society. It's basically holding a mirror, like, hey, here's what you actually look like. Like, it's a beautiful film. I love it. I love the message. I love the cinematography and the directing, especially the acting is all really good. I really didn't have any complaints with the movie. I know that I've heard some people say that they did not like Chris Evans in it.
I've never heard that in my life, and I don't think I ever will. He's great in it. What I've heard complaints about the movie from friends that I've recommended it, which I understand their complaint on the ending. I personally thought it was beautiful. I personally really liked the ending.
I love it. I don't think you could have ended it a different way. I loved it.
I agree, which we won't go into the ending, but I know a lot of people don't like it, but I thought it was really beautiful. I really liked it. I actually heard that they're writing up a TV series for it. I might not be a fan. No. I don't really know how that's going to work.
When I first heard about that, I was like, what? I was like, how does that, I was like, that movie kind of ended. Like, it ended, but then I was thinking, if they go back to when the people are having to first get on the train, I think it could be a really interesting social piece on seeing how everything went down there in the beginning. I think it'd be a great mini series on something like HBO or Showtime, preferably HBO.
I agree, because if they do go back to the beginning, that makes for some very interesting character studies on what people do in the face of chaos and disaster and facing their own mortality.
Mm-hmm.
It's really intense, and they touch on that in the movie quite a bit, which is the more emotionally heavy parts of the film. And the movie also makes you think, like, what do we know and what do we not know about like what goes on in our world? Like, these people have lived on one train.
It touches on propaganda a lot too.
It's an incredible movie that I really think everyone should watch. It's fantastic. It has a lot of action that's really great to watch. I love it, and I recommend it to everyone. Everyone should watch Snowpiercer.
Please check it out, you guys.
Yeah, even if you don't like the ending, you'll love the ride getting to the end.
Ride this train.
On the train. It's incredibly interesting, and I would say pay a lot of attention to the side characters. I don't remember their names. They're Korean, so I think they're Korean, but their names, I don't know what they are, but they're really important characters to watch throughout their movie. And
it's like you're watching two movies. You're watching one movie about Chris Evans' character and one movie about their characters.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to watch. We're going to go ahead and apologize here because on our social media, we did say we were going to talk about Frank, which is a great movie on Netflix for movies you might have missed. But we have quite a bit to say about a different movie, so we're going to run out of time, I know. So we're going to just push Frank off until next week. But tune back in next week. We'll definitely be talking about that with Michael Fassbender, Domhnall Gleeson, two actors we talked about last week. They're both great in the movie, but we just watched this other one very recently. I saw it for the first time, and it's really great. It's called Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. And Ashley, I know you've seen this more times than I have. I just saw it recently. What did you love about it, and why should people check it out?
Well, this movie is really quirky and cute and also kind of sad because it is about this guy named Greg Gaines. He is a senior in high school, and since he's a senior, he's kind of he feels like, oh, I've figured everything out, like he's kind of acquaintances with everybody, but he doesn't consider himself to really have any friends in school. He has this one guy named Earl that he hangs out with, but he calls him his co-worker because they're big film fans, and they make kind of, I guess, parodies of classic films. Like my personal favorite from Mean Streets, they call it Grumpy Cul-de-sacs, which is endlessly hilarious to me. And then they are friends. Greg's mom makes him befriend this girl named Rachel who is diagnosed with leukemia, and it's really just about their relationship and about his insecurities, and it's just a great coming of age story with a fantastic screenplay, great performances, and I also really like the soundtrack to that movie too. It's a beautiful movie, and it's kind of in the vein of films like Perks of Being a Wallflower, that like quirky, oh, I'm kind of an outcast, but I have my group of friends, and it's about self-discovery and about love, of not only of like other people, but of film. It's a love letter to movies, really, like, and what movies can mean to certain people, and like what they can do and like help people get through really rough times, because they end up kind of showing Rachel their little films, and it helps her like get through her treatment, like with leukemia and everything. And it's funny, it's sad. I really love it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was ecstatic when you said it was in Redbox and you got to show me this movie, because I had heard about it, but it wasn't playing where I was living at the time, and I was so excited to see it. And I really, really enjoyed the acting in this movie and you mentioned Earl, Earl makes a comment in the movie. He's like, I mean, we're friends, but the dude's too afraid to call anyone his friend.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it really plays on the main character's insecurities and everything like that. And it's really about, you think you have everything figured out, but you can meet a person or discover something that completely changes your outlook, and you meet people in your life who teach you lessons that you never would have learned otherwise, and they'll really change how you see things, and they'll change your life. And I mean, I've had experiences like that. Not to his extent, I don't think, but it was just a really incredible movie to watch. And the way it was shot and detailed, it's such a detail-oriented movie. Every shot is so meticulously set up and it's framed strange.
Very dramatic framing.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
It's very dramatic framing, but it means something, and it's so interesting to watch, and it's just absolutely beautiful.
Well, see, my favorite thing about this movie was the characters, which come from the screenplay. And this actually is a book written by Jesse Andrews, and I read the book after I heard somebody describe the movie as, what was it? It was The Fault in Our Stars if it was done by Wes Anderson. And I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds amazing, because I liked The Fault in Our Stars, but I don't know. This to me was much, much better. And what I loved about it is that the screenplay doesn't take itself too seriously. And in reference to the book, I thought that the movie added a lot more depth that wasn't present in the book. But it's written by the same guy. Jesse Andrews adapted his own book into the screenplay, and I thought he did a fantastic job with it.
Well, maybe giving it a second look made it even better for the movie. Yeah, I loved all the little fake movies that they made with the names, specifically Grumpy Cul-de-sacs, as well as 2:48 p.m. Cowboy and things like that. They're absolutely hilarious.
Pooping
to me.
Tom.
Yes, exactly. And at the end of the movie, it gives you a look at all 42 of the spoof titles that they had, and they're hilarious. And I mean, you could go online and look those up just to have a good laugh.
Mm-hmm. They're so great, especially with the little classic film nods. Like, everything in it was just really well thought out. And when we were talking about the dramatic framing, it also has a really great and bright color scheme that I think really plays out well with the tone of the film, because while it is a sad movie, it never gets depressing. You know, it keeps you interested, and it keeps you compelled with these characters, even though you kind of get annoyed with Greg at points. And like, I don't know. And I thought that Rachel was great. Her performance in particular she's fantastic. I think her name is Olivia Cook. I'm not sure, but she's great.
She did really great, and I think her room is so interesting. Like I said, they set up each shot so particularly. Her room is designed in such an incredible way. Every little thing in her room means something about her. You learn something more about her every time they're in her room. It's such an incredible movie to watch. Everyone should really check it out. Like, I really enjoyed it.
And not only that, like I said, it's funny. Like, there are really some laugh out loud parts in this movie where, like, you don't really expect that in a movie about cancer. And like, I will say the only performance in this movie that I was kind of like, that's a little out of nowhere, is Rachel's mom. I mean, she was just kind of a little off taste for me. I didn't really get why she acted like she did, other than, oh yeah, she's depressed. Like, but I feel like they could have done it in a different way. It kind of bothered me, and to me, it was more awkward than it was funny. I think that was the only comedy in the movie that kind of missed for me.
I would agree, because with her character, I was just like, and I don't think it would be the performance to blame. I did not like the character. Like, I was just like, you're kind of annoying. You don't really make any sense to me here.
I read the book a long time ago, but I really don't remember her being like that in the book. Although I did enjoy the Modest Mouse reference. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, maybe that's a change that they made that just didn't hit quite as well as everything else. Overall, though, fantastic movie. I know it premiered last year, I think at Sundance.
Mm-hmm. It won the audience prize and the grand jury prize, I think. So
nice. And that's where it got picked up, and I'm so glad that it did, so that everyone has the opportunity to see this movie, and everyone should definitely seek it out. And
it's in Redbox.
Yeah, it's in Redbox at the moment, so definitely go check that out. Movie night.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Brady. Do you think that it has any Oscar chances for screenplay?
Maybe. I can't speak on that just yet, just because I haven't seen everything else that's going to be coming out in this Oscar season. And saying that, it's just kind of like, am I going to remember this specific screenplay when it's put up next to probably The Revenant and things like that of that caliber?
Well, what it's going to be adapted. So it will be in there with The Revenant probably. And what was the other one? The Martian is in there. Black Mass, I believe, is adapted from a book. But I honestly don't know if that screenplay is going to get nominated for much.
The performances were what were really important in Black Mass.
I really wanted Black Mass to be longer, was my problem with it. I thought that they didn't tell enough of the story. I wanted more from that movie because I did enjoy it. But yeah, so I think that
it was
out
just
of the
flat.
Yeah, it was really flat. But out of the screenplays that I've seen so far this year, I really personally hope it gets a chance because I think it would be a good thing for it to kind of sneak in there.
Yeah, it's definitely a great screenplay and a movie that really everyone can enjoy. It has a little bit of everything. It's funny, it's sad, it's everything. Everyone should really go check that out. And thank you so much for listening to our episode today. We've had a great time talking about Martin Scorsese and some of our favorite movies. Thanks so much for listening. Just another reminder, please go like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That'd be a great help just to support us.
All the Cinema Twins.
Yeah, they're all the Cinema Twins. Thank you so much for listening.